I think it's kind of funny how Eagles fans are really like excited potentially
Big
about this
name, big
happening.
name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
big
I
name
get
trap.
like it's a fun player, it's a fun profile. Like I get the you kind of add some excitement to the team. I'm not trying to take that away, but it doesn't really move the needle too much for me. I mean,
We got Maga Mac, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. We will add to the mix. That good-looking young man on our screen is the editor-in-chief of Bleeding Green Nation. Brandon Lee Gowton joins us here on Birds 365. BLG, 9 days in counting. Do you know what you're doing over the next 9 days?
I'm going to be gearing up for the NFL draft, Jody. It's going to be exciting.
It is going to be exciting. I don't know if you heard how much we were talking about, Brandon, before you popped on, but talking about the Eagles in the lead up to the draft. And so from the start of free agency to where we are 9 days before the draft. And I want to get your take because I know my take. My take is they seem a little bit less prepared for the draft than what you want to do in free agency, which was, which generally every general manager will say, at least set yourself to where you have band-aids, whatever the term you want to use, so you don't feel compelled to reach for certain positions in the draft. You think the Eagles have done that, or you think they have more needs, which is my contention?
Yeah, I think they've done it to an extent. Obviously, they add Hassan Reddick. That kind of fills a hole, a pass rusher that they had. Zach Pascal, you don't want to be a starter, but he gives you another body at wide receiver, which you desperately needed. You add Kaiser White, which, has the potential to be a starter for you. There's a lot of ifs here outside of, I would say, Reddick, who clearly fits in as a significant contributor, whereas White, you have the Eagles' history of linebacker signings, and it's not exactly promising, and there's no guarantee that he even lasted the season given their history. Although I will say that I like his profile, and the money that the Eagles gave to him was obviously more significant than they've given to some of these other linebacker signings, such as Corey Nelson in the past. So I would say they've done some things, but obviously they didn't do, I think, what they set out to do when you look at how they swung and missed on a number of players, including Calvin Ridley, including Robert Woods, Marcus Williams. The list goes on. Recently, there was rumors they were connected to Stephon Gilmore. So they clearly did not address all their needs like I would want to in a perfect world.
How much in that John describes it as not good enough? I've described it as not good enough. You're kind of cutting more slack than we are. That in some ways they play. How much does the narrative change if they sign Honey Badger in the 9 days leading up to the draft, if they get a deal done with Tyrann Mathieu?
I think it's kind of funny how Eagles fans are really like excited potentially about this happening.
Big name.
Yeah. And then I get like it's a fun player, it's a fun, profile. Like I get you kind of add some excitement to the team. I'm not trying to take that away, but it doesn't really move the needle too much for me. I mean,
it moves the needle over what they've got at that position right now.
Sure, it's an improvement, yeah, but like in the bigger picture, are they contenders now because they have the Honey Badger? I mean, no, not really. I don't think it changes their win total. Maybe one game at the very most. I don't know. I don't think it's that kind of huge deal. I don't think this is the same Tyrann Mathieu that he was in his absolute prime. I think he's a little worse than that as he's getting a bit older and has more years in the NFL here. So, it's obviously a big deal because right now at safety, it's just Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps maybe. It's an improvement. I get that, but I don't think, and he's probably only joining the team if he does at all, which I tend to think he won't because there's other teams out there who I think are kind of more closer to contending, and he might want to go to those teams instead. And even if you're getting him, I'm imagining it's only a 1-year deal, so it's not even like he's a long-term piece for you necessarily.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Joe Banner called it the big name trap with Honey Badger. I think clearly he's a descending player. He's just better than what you have. So sure. I kind of understand where the Eagles are. And I always say, if you look at each individual move with the Eagles, it tends to make sense on paper. They are disciplined. They don't want to overpay. But then I go to the opposite end of that, Brandon. I said, I don't want to go out. I told Jody I don't want to go out and get gas this morning because I don't agree with the setup. I don't agree with the price and where it is. I got to do it if I want to live life. It's the cost of business, the living life. If you want to get involved in certain positions, wide receiver number one, because we've seen that market explode. In the Eagles, again, in a vacuum, I'm like, I don't want to give 20 plus million to insert name, AJ Brown or Terry McLaurin or Debo Samuel. By nature, you need a vehicle to get him the football, which is the quarterback, right? So I don't like paying that position, but then I'm not going to be involved with those players. And those players are going to be coming in with other teams week after week after week while you're rolling out the Zach Pascals of the world and the Quez Watkinses of the world. That's kind of where we are. Do you think the Eagles are too disciplined at times?
I think this all kind of speaks to where the Eagles are / where they think they are at quarterback. And it's clearly not that, wow, we have the guy. It's time to push our chips all in, say like a team like the Chargers are doing by getting Khalil Mack and, you know, re-signing Mike Williams and spending that kind of big money. I don't think the Eagles think they're in that spot. They're in this middle ground. They're kind of stuck, I feel like, treading water. I feel like that's what a lot of this offseason has been about. Now, again, I did admit that they've tried to make some bigger moves, but with those not being able to be consummated ultimately, they kind of just have been standing here in the middle, waiting, kind of maintaining flexibility, at least I think they would say, for the future, and not trying to go all in with this version of the team. And I think that, again, is somewhat indicative of how they feel about the quarterback. And it's not the time to really go all in and build around that guy and feel like you can push for a championship year. So I think that's part of the it's just where this team is right now. They're stuck in that middle range in the NFL. And it's possible, they're obviously, you look at the context of the division and they can compete in that, but I don't think they see themselves with the elites teams.
All right, so if they're not one of the elite teams that is close enough that you can legitimately say, yeah, if all the breaks go our way, we can win a Super Bowl. Probably part of that is because, sorry about this, Jalen Hurts is their quarterback. And I hope Jalen Hurts goes nuts and balls out this year. And we're all thinking about, hey, Howie, you got to give him a contract extension. And we're okay with paying him $30+ million. We don't know that right now. And the Eagles have to operate and do roster construction with Jalen being the quasi-question mark that he is. But here's my line of logic as to why I wouldn't be afraid to pay a guy like Honey Badger. If Jalen Hurts is not the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles in 2023, who do you think will be, BLG?
I don't know. It could be many. Probably a rookie, I guess, maybe. Or
probably a rookie. Thank you very much. That's the exact answer I was looking for, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. I believe that's the case. Well, you're not going to have to pay him either. He's going to be on a rookie contract. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. You're not going into the $30+ million. It's locked in. So you're going to go from an inexpensive quarterback play to an inexpensive quarterback play. So why are you afraid to be spending money in other positions? A lot of times teams have to do that. Well, here we are, put all the big quarterback money aside and then build the roster around him. The Eagles are going to be inexpensive at quarterback in the future anyway. So why should they be afraid to spend at other positions?
Well, it takes two to tango. And I think there's really no evidence of players lining up to come play with Jalen Hurts in Philly. I mean, look at the players the Eagles signed this offseason. Zach Pascal had a close relationship with Nick Sirianni, and also like a pretty inexpensive deal. Kaiser White is relatively from the area, Lehigh County native. Yep. Hassan Reddick, Camden, went to Temple. Like, they're signing players who are like from the area. They're not signing these players who are like, everyone is competing for this guy and he chose Philly over everyone. That's not where they are. So maybe, maybe you can get the Honey Badger if you just absolutely blow every other team out of the water. But I don't think they're going to do that. And if it's any kind of close, even if, the Eagles are offering more, but like, let's say the Rams, just for example, are offering a little bit less, you might take the Rams and try to go win another Super Bowl.
Yeah, but isn't it sometimes a self-fulfilling prophecy, Brandon? If you say, "Well, nobody wants to come here. We're not ready." I say it all the time. The Sixers broke Philadelphia. I think partially the Sixers and partially contentment on the Eagles side because you hear Jeffrey Lurie say, "Well, we won a Super Bowl," reminding us there's a Lombardi Trophy in the lobby at the NovaCare complex. Um, where did we get to this point where the Philadelphia Eagles are saying, well, we're not ready. We're not ready. And where's this assumption that when you are ready, let's pretend we have Bryce Young and he turns out to be a superstar, that so and so is going to be there and you're going to have the ability to seize on that exact moment. It seems to me the good teams in this league keep adding good players. Pretty simple. The Eagles seem obsessed to me, and I'll throw it to you this way, Brandon. And they want to win outside the margins. I've described it, and they're good at it. Look at the valuation of the trade with the Saints. It's great before we know who the players are. Howie Roseman looks like he fleeced Mickey Loomis. All that stuff is great, but talent doesn't have to win outside the margins. They're just better than everybody else. So if you have the best quarterback, you have the best quarterback. If you have the best wide receiver, you have the best wide receiver. If you are Aaron Donald going to the Hall of Fame, the reason, you can talk about the weather and all that stuff, and obviously the Super Bowl plays into it. But a lot of guys just want to go play with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. If you're Honey Badger, for instance. He's probably going to want to go out there. If the Eagles had an Aaron Donald, guys would want to play with him. Mm-hmm. Are they too caught up in this winning outside the margins mentality?
I get what you're saying there. Yeah. And I think there's always a, how he wants to outsmart people kind of frustration from his critics. And I also think there's a Eagles have their vision of where they are. Like last year, for example, Jeffrey Lurie said they're in a transition year. But I think back to 2017, and no one really thought the Eagles were going to not even like just win the Super Bowl, obviously, but like even be top team, necessarily top 2 or 3 team in the NFC that year, let's say, or even win the division. So you don't always know. And I think that's another important thing to kind of check yourself with. Now, of course, the quarterback situation is much different then than it was now. And I think there was more reason to be optimistic about Carson Wentz, as this kind of elite tier prospect, at least at the time. So you never know. And I think the Eagles have it goes back to them having their idea of where they are and where they stand. And I think they will be aggressive when they get to a point where they feel like they can push their chips in. I mean, we've seen how we do that in the past. Although I will say it's kind of been a while. Like what's the last, like slam dunk, huge headline grabbing kind of move they've made. I can't really remember. Like Hassan Reddick doesn't qualify for that. I'm talking about something where they kind of steal like the front page news, so to speak. So it's been a while. And it's weird because, you look at Howie's record early on and he was all about that, Nnamdi and everything and signing a lot of big names and everything. So maybe it's he's been scared off a little bit by that. But I think it's kind of a number of factors coming together here.
This is not good, John. This is 2 days in a row we've had a Nnamdi Asomugha mentioned on the show. We're turning back the clock to the bad old days. That's not what I want to hear. All right, BLG, I give you and your site credit. Go there basically every single day because you've been ahead of the curve on Eagles players coming in for pre-draft visits, and you got the compiled list. Well, one of the guys on the list, one of the early guys, as a matter of fact, here in Philadelphia, has gotten some bad press over the last 24, 48 hours, and that's Devonta Wyatt from Georgia, one of the 2 key defensive tackles of that great Georgia defense. Couple people reporting. Charles Campbell from Walter Football said that he talked up some NFL teams and said Wyatt has either dropped down their board and or in some cases dropped completely off their board on attitude/character issues. I know at one point Johnny Mack believed the Eagles would go in DT, and Wyatt was one of the guys he was thinking about slotting in to one of the Maybe it goes back to when the Eagles had 3 picks before the Saints trade. But now that they've got 2, Wyatt is a guy who has been mocked that high in the draft. Have you heard anything? What have you heard? Why do you think this is a story that's making the rounds that we'll find out on draft night whether Wyatt is or isn't dropping as precipitously as some people are suggesting?
Maybe this is part of why, the Eagles brought him in for a pre-draft visit, because they want to talk to him and kind of get more information about this. Maybe they had been hearing, some of these things and kind of wanted to get, more of a, fill in some of the gaps that they might not have there. And, that's obviously what these pre-draft visits are used for. It's not like there's a workout component. It's about interviewing these players. It's about, putting them through, testing in terms of their physical status and everything. So, they might be doing their homework on him. I think that would be one of the worst possible picks from the Eagles from a profile standpoint. I know he's probably a little bit better than the numbers indicate, but you're talking about a player here with 5 sacks and 42 games at Georgia. This is a guy who's going to be 24.5 in his rookie season. Like that's pretty much on the older side. I just don't think that's the kind of the needle moving, I'll use that phrase again, player that the Eagles should be, the profile at least they should be targeting. Obviously the draft is a crapshoot in many ways. So I think you have to kind of make good bets and bet on upside. And I just don't know that I love the ceiling for him in addition to these character concerns. So if I'm the Eagles, I would probably be trying to stay away from that one.
Okay, let's talk about needle movers. BLG. This team has 2 first-round picks now, 15 and 18. There's still a chance they'll move up the board, move back. Who knows with Howie? Certainly looks to me like the annual tradition is back. They almost have to get a wide receiver, don't they?
They can't sign one. They can't attract one that way. And they tried to trade for one, and it didn't work out. What's the other way that's left? It's the draft. Otherwise, you're going into the season potentially with Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and Zach Pascal as your top 3. I don't think that's good enough. I think they need to add a receiver in the first round, not just because it is a need, and I'm saying they need to reach for that, but I think you look at how the value lines up, and depending on how the board shakes out, there's going to be multiple options for them there, both at 15 and 18. So I just think it makes too much sense to not add a guy. I'm a big Jameson Williams fan. I think he's really good. I think he is the kind of player that you do want to bet on. Speaking of upside, I don't know if he'll be there at number 15, considering that, he is very explosive coming off the season where he averaged 19.9 yards per reception. Crazy. I know that obviously he's coming off the injury as well, but I would kind of be less concerned about that as a kind of maybe of a more standard ACL tear, which we're seeing players kind of.
And the Eagles aren't ready anyway, so they can wait.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
He keeps running this by me. The Eagles aren't ready yet. Man, you're dropping Namdi. He's dropping the Eagles aren't ready yet. This whole show is bringing me down.
They can wait. They can wait. But you know what can't wait, Brandon? May 1st, I think May 2nd is the day you have to pick your 50-year option up on Andre Dillard. So there are 2 players, really, Andre Dillard and Jalen Reagor. Your odds that they will be on the Eagles May 1st post-draft?
I think the problem is, they should be gone. That is the should of it all. The problem is the Eagles can be very stubborn about these kind of things and kind of, to your phrasing, John, trying to win the margins and whatnot. We saw it with Zach Ertz last year. He should have been gone way sooner than he ended up being gone. And that's crazy, by the way. They risked him getting hurt, and they would have been stuck with on his full salary the whole year if he got.
I remember Jody would tell me every day, Zach Ertz is still here. Zach Ertz is still here. And I would tell him they're trying to trade him. They're trying, but they are stubborn. That is a good word, Brandon.
They're stubborn, and that's why I feel like I can't just assume that they're going to be gone. But Dillard, if you pick up his 5th-year option, that just doesn't make sense to me in terms of the downside is you get stuck with him, and you're paying, a left tackle only backup, like what, 12 million or whatever it is. You can't be paying him backup that much money, especially when you have a good offensive line coach too. Andre Dillard doesn't have to be the only possible backup left tackle you can have. Like LaRaven Clark is probably a pretty solid option given his price point relative to $12 million in Andre Dillard. And then with Reagor, I mean, I don't know that he's going to be gone in the draft. Maybe that you bring him back for one more training camp. I don't know if anyone wants him, but I mean, he can't be on the team this year. It's just, I think something that doesn't get covered enough with him is, some of these guys, like let's say even Marcus Smith, like he was a bust, but like, I don't think we ever really said he dogged it. He just wasn't very good. Jalen Reagor dogs it out there a lot, or at least more often than never. And I just don't know how the team stands for that. Like when he's not even at least giving maximum effort, that's a problem, and he can't be around.
We'll see how that one shakes out. All right, BLG, I asked you this before, and you went where I wanted you to go, so I'm going to actually have to take you to a different spot. Eagles quarterback position. Should they be interested? Should they just be staying on top of? Should they actively be pursuing Kyler Murray? Because the situation is what it is in Arizona. He deleted all his Cardinal references from his social media. We'll find out today if he shows up for off-season workouts, which, by the way, 30 of the NFL teams will be participating today, the two that aren't, Bengals and Eagles. But I'm banking on Kyler Murray not being there for the voluntary work for the Cardinals. It's only going to get uglier as of this week. Should the Eagles be pursuing Kyler Murray?
No, it's that simple. They should not be trading premium resources for this guy and then giving him a huge contract. We're talking about a player here who's 22, 23-1 overall as a starter. You look at his record in December, he's 6-11. You're going to include the playoff game, he's 6-12. His average passer rating in the month of December is 85.9. He had a 40.9 passer rating in the playoff loss this year. That is a guy who has been part of the Cardinals, having these really disappointing collapses at the end of seasons the past 2 years. And maybe it's not all in Kyler. People want to blame Cliff Kingsbury too. And he's part of it.
I do.
Sure. But but Kyler's part of it too. You can't say the quarterback you can't wash his hands clean. And to me, I can't do that. I think that he wants to get paid so much now, as opposed to looking at maybe like a Dak Prescott or Lamar Jackson, who are willing to bet on themselves and make more money. That kind of is a red flag to me. I almost wonder, like, he just wants to get the money because maybe he has some doubts about himself. I don't know. I'm not willing to bet on Kyler.
Kyler to me is interesting, Brandon, because he is so talented. And I kind of agree. I do agree with you. If I were the Eagles, I wouldn't go that route. But then I start to think of myself, if I'm playing devil's advocate, I'm like, what are we waiting for? I mean, he's clearly more talented than the quarterback you have.
Sure.
Long term, if you get a good quarterback, you're going to have to pay him eventually. And the going rate right now is 30 for an average quarterback, 40 for a good quarterback. That's just the nature of the position now in the NFL. You can wait for Russell Wilson till the cows come home. Aaron Rodgers type who was never going to come here to begin with. And then you start talking about young guys in the draft. I mean, are we trying to be too perfect? Because there is player development. That's one of the things the Eagles play up with Jalen Hurts. He's improved every year. Well, who's to say Kyler Murray can't improve? And he's already a playoff level quarterback with a bad coach. So if you want to spin it in a positive fashion from Kyler's standpoint, you look at that, you look at the talent level, you look at what he's accomplished on a team not used to accomplishing a ton, absent a few runs with Kurt Warner back in the day and things like that. Are the Eagles being too specific on we have to have the superstar, or we just want to turn this thing over and over and over again and again and again?
I think there's I think it's easy to just be like, oh, we'll just, kick that can down the road. What's a problem for another day? And I think a lot of fans are kind of thinking that way when it comes to quarterback, especially being on board with Jalen Hurts starting this year and passing on some of the prospects in this class. Like, oh, we can figure that out next year. But can you? Are you sure? Because you don't know if there's going to be any veteran options available. Maybe Kyler will be, or Lamar, or someone will be. It's possible, but you don't know that for sure. And then, sure, the 2023 draft class might be enticing at this stage with some quarterback prospects, but again, they could have some really bad seasons. Someone could get hurt. The class might just not look as good as it did. We could reach this point next year and we're going to be like, hey, it's all about the 2024 draft class. That one's the real one that's looking good. So, I mean, that's what happens, I feel like. And also, you have to look at that. There's 4 other teams that have multiple first-round picks next year. And I think there could be some more. I think the Giants are contender to potentially pick up a first-round pick next year as well. So you're competing with other teams, to be able to trade up if you can, assuming you can. So it's just, there's a lot of uncertainty there. There isn't a guaranteed light at the end of the tunnel. So I get that. That's that side of it. Just the fact that there is some certainty now. And that was really my kind of argument with, going after Russell Wilson hard. But the Eagles are waiting, and it's not clear if there's going to be an option waiting for them.
DLG, you earlier when I asked you about Devontae Wyatt, who seems to be doing the slide down the draft boards, some character/attitude issues, you gave us good reasons why you don't think he's a fit for the Eagles at either of their 2 draft spots, and I agree with you. How about Jordan Davis? How about his teammate? The biggest, strongest, most athletic defensive tackle in this draft, bar none. Guy who used to come off the field on passing downs in Georgia, but when on the field, he was a stone-cold playmaker for them. If he falls down to the Eagles, the reason why I'm asking this is because Howie Roseman very often reverts to what Howie Roseman knows and believes in most, the trenches. That when in doubt, get into the trenches. I don't think they're going offensive line, so that only leaves the defensive line, and it could either be inside or outside. If Jordan Davis is sitting there, will the Eagles be able to show that famed discipline that John McMullen likes to talk about and say, yeah, no, we need to get someone in a position we have a need for. We can't be drafted. We got Hargrave and Cox again this year. We can't be going DT. Is he going to be too good for the Eagles to pass up?
So I have an article about Jordan Davis coming out on bleedinggreenNation.com.
There you go.
Today.
Very good.
So,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, nice little plug. So I'll be, touching on it even more there. But the short of it here is that the way I thought about Devontae Smith last year was like, Eagles, you got to keep it simple, like KISS, keep it simple. Stupid. Like, this is the Heisman winner, really good receiver. Like, don't try to talk yourself out of him. Oh, he's really good. Just trust me. And then Jordan Davis, I almost feel in a similar vein of like, this is the second most athletic prospect of not just defensive tackle. He's the most athletic defensive tackle ever at size and the things he can do. Oh, and by the way, he won the Chuck Bednarik Award last year for the best defensive player in college football. Maybe we don't need to overthink that. Maybe you can just add that guy to your team, and he can be a needle mover, someone incredibly unique. And I think there's a case to be made, even though obviously, again, his sack production wasn't great, although I will say it was better than Devontae Wyatt's in terms of the more sacks and fewer games. And I know the snap count and everything, but don't talk yourself out of that guy. I think that guy can be special. He only turned 22 in January. He only started playing football in his sophomore year of high school. This hasn't been necessarily a lifelong thing for him. I think there's an argument to be made he can get better. And when you're talking about position of need, I think defensive tackle is one, because Fletcher Cox is back on a 1-year deal that he shouldn't be on. He shouldn't be back here on that rate, but nevertheless he is. And Javon Hargrave is going to be a free agent after this season. So I think there's a pretty big need at that spot. And I think Jordan Davis is a guy worth betting on. At the very least, I think he will be a dominant run stuffer. And also, I think an interesting point to consider here is not to say that these kind of players drove these teams to championship success, but you look at Vita Vea, you look at Haloti Ngata, you look at Vince Wilfork, like these kind of massive attention-gathering defensive tackles have been important parts of some championship teams. So I absolutely think that player can have a lot of value.
Brandon Gowton at Brandon Gowton, bleedinggreenNation.com. So read that on Jordan Davis, another player I love for the Eagles. I think you're right about that, Brandon. A couple of days ago, it came across my feed. I want to give the Sixers some love after I say they broke Philadelphia, obviously up 2-0. I saw Brandon Lee Gowton pop up in my feed. I think it said Tyrese Maxey is unreal, something like that. Just a simple tweet. I want here's what I want from you. And Devontae Smith, you just talked about, he doesn't count because he was a top 10 pick.
Mhm.
I say all the time, Jody knows, player development is real. That's how the Eagles spun the hiring of Nick Sirianni and this staff. Is there a Tyrese Maxey on the Eagles? Is there somebody who wasn't expected? I think he was the 21st, 22nd pick. Nobody knew. All of a sudden he explodes. Is there somebody like that on the Eagles?
I think if there would be someone, I think, it's obviously Tyrese Maxey's a high bar because, again, he has been – you can't tell me that Tyrese Maxey's biggest fans thought he would be this good. Like, I won't believe that. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
But if there's a guy who could make that kind of unexpected leap, and it's not Devontae Smith, I'm going to go with Quez Watkins. John, you and I have seen him at practice, and I think he's done some pretty good things. And I'm sorry, but I don't think maybe it won't happen because of the quarterback, but I think there is something to the quarterback, holding back Quez Watkins. I mean, you just look at the playoff game against the Bucs last year. There were some opportunities for Quez Watkins to make some big plays, and the quarterback wasn't hitting them. So maybe Jalen Hurts takes a big leap, and maybe Quez Watkins benefits from that. I feel like Quez Watkins is a little undervalued. I think he's not a volume target. He's not going to be anything like 100 catch per season guy. He's not that kind of player, but I think in terms of being a big play guy down the field, and not just a speed guy, the way we've seen him make contested catches and everything too, and be able to play at a slot in multiple spots. I think Quez Watkins is a little undervalued, and I think it's possible if Jalen Hurts makes the leap, I think you can see Quez Watkins make the leap with him.
BLG, it is YouTube, so you're allowed to say stupid, whether it's keep it simple, stupid, or is it stupid that the Eagles are 2 of 32 teams that aren't getting an extra week of work in this week? Last year, I theorized when the Eagles went light, and you and McMullen both got the benefit from it in camp, that you do your 45 minutes, everybody go home, drive home safely. Nobody complained about that for you guys, so more power to you. But the Eagles seem to believe that less is more when it comes to working out. John assures me this is a medical decision, that they're playing carefully, that they believe that their analytics say if you don't push them too hard, you'll stay healthier over the course of the year. Maybe that's right. Maybe it isn't. I don't know, but maybe I'm just old school, that practice is a good thing, and that the more you work, the more you get into it. There isn't the coach needs to win over the locker room by making things optional rather than mandatory. Are the Eagles stupid for not working out this week?
I don't think they're stupid. I think what's the other team? It's the Bengals.
Cincinnati, the Bengals.
Obviously, who came off just the longest season in NFL history with the extra week and then making it to the Super Bowl.
Oh, and they're also the cheapest organization. They won't have to feed the players this week if they don't bring them in.
Well,
and that is a potential consideration.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, I don't think they're stupid. I think you look at you have to kind of go to the ethos of the decision. And last year it was all about leaning on the side of being conservative, not only in training camp, but also during the season, especially later on in the year where they weren't even really practicing, at least early in the week. They're really just running walkthroughs. And I think that really served them well for the most part. Certainly they weren't as injured as they were under Doug's final year, some of Doug's final years. So I would say, why go away from that if that kind of worked for them last year? You don't want a season-ending injury in May.
That's true. And I'll follow up. I said last one, but real quick, because I want to me, it's an organizational decision. In other words, this is not Nick Sirianni. I've yet to meet the football coach that doesn't want to practice, that doesn't want to be on the field. So if we look at this moving forward, and the Eagles are successful, and let's say they start, overachieving year one, they overachieve a little bit more. People don't think they're ready. Nick Sirianni maybe wins a playoff game. And all of a sudden he starts getting more and more leverage. I think Nick's the kind of guy that's going to push back more than Doug Peterson. Do you get that feeling, Brandon?
It kind of seems like, which is crazy to say for a Super Bowl winning head coach, but it kind of feels like Nick has a little more sway than Doug. I think part of that might be the Eagles realizing that they didn't give their head coach enough respect and power, and that contributed to some of the things that went wrong. So they kind of have to give a little bit more there and allow it for some more leniency. So, yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Now, of course, it's never going to be to the point where Jeffrey Lurie is going to be siding with Nick Sirianni over Howie Roseman or anything. But I do think they kind of have course corrected a little bit from what happened with Doug. It's possible, but I also kind of believe it when I see it.
All right, BLG, when's the article on Jordan Davis going up on the site?
It'll be this afternoon. I'm actually not publishing it. It's part of the we're doing a mock draft throughout SB Nation, so it's part of that. But it will be up later today at some point.
Sounds good. Brandon Lee Gowton, Bleeding Green Nation. Always good to catch up with you, big guy. We'll do so again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, BLG.
BLG here with us on Birds 365. All right, Jody Mac coming back. I want to tap into another guy we use from time to time here on the show, John McMullen's cohort at phillyvoice.com. Jimmy Kempski had something in his column at phillyvoice.com today that I flat out couldn't believe. I'll explain it to you when we come back here on Birds 365.